What's up, guys? My name's Nate and this is Heavy Pedal Garage. Today we're going to talk about fiberglass repair and the materials that you need to use to make the correct repairs on your car. The first thing you need to consider is what type of fiberglass material you have. There's the traditional type of fiberglass that's going to have a very heavy texture to it. Especially when you look on the back side of that fiberglass, you'll actually see the fibers. The other type of fiberglass is SMC, sheet material composite or compound. And in the mid-70s, automobile manufacturers started to use the sheet material compound. You can tell if you have sheet material compound because of the texture of that fiberglass. It's going to have a very smooth surface once you get under the paint layer. There is no gel coat on sheet material compound, SMC. It'll have a very smooth surface. It'll be a powdery type substance when you sand it, and it will also be smooth on the underside of that fiberglass material. So most likely, if you have fiberglass parts produced by automobile manufacturers after the early to mid 70s, you probably have sheet material compound. I have never done fiberglass before. Everything I'm about to tell you, take it with a grain of salt. I'm just sharing my thoughts and opinion that's based on research that I've done over the last couple weeks on the internet. So I'm by no means a professional. So I want to thank Pontiac Firebird Fanatics on Facebook for guiding me in the right direction. Treasure Hunter commented on my last video and pointed me to the fact that there are those two different types of fiberglass, and that when you do fiberglass repairs, you need to make sure that, number one, you know what material you're working with, and number two, that you purchase the correct products to work with that material. So when sheet material composite, SMC, is created, they use a mold. And in that mold, they lay a piece of this SMC material. When they do that, the SMC material smooths out in the mold. They use the pressure and the heat to form that piece, and the mold is removed. Well, in the mid-70s, in order for that mold to be removed, they started incorporating a mold release agent into the SMC material. What that is a polyester-based material. So you need to know which materials to use. If you have SMC products, SMC panels on your car, you need to use an approved fiberglass resin that will work with that material. This is a traditional normal fiberglass resin that you would find in a Bondo kit on any auto parts store. This fiberglass resin has a polyester base. So if you have SMC material, what I'm reading is that the mold release agent in the SMC piece will actually react with this polyester based resin, and it won't stick very well because the mold release agent will not allow for that. So I'm sure a lot of people have successfully used the regular fiberglass resin with polyester in it to repair SMC materials. I don't doubt that it will work. The issue is that you may have less adhesion. I've read reports of folks using the regular fiberglass material, and after their patch is placed, they can go in after it dries and just pop that patch off in one large piece, because you're not getting the adhesion due to the mold release agent not allowing the polyester resin to bind. Now, I would assume if you have plenty of mechanical tooth through grinding and sanding scratches, I would think that you wouldn't necessarily have a chemical bond, but you would certainly have a mechanical adhesion. So that is why using that fiberglass resin that has the polyester base may in fact work for you, and I'm sure it's worked for plenty of other people. However, if you want to properly do a repair on an SMC panel, what I found is that you must buy SMC approved products. So really look at what kind of filler, body filler, you're using. I've happened to look it up, and the Bondo glass is actually approved for SMC repairs. So the filler that I'm using will be the Bondo glass. However, I'm not going to use the regular resin, the polyester based resin, on my repairs. This is relatively cheap. This is what I'm going to use, and it's not necessarily so cheap. I believe this was nearly $50 to get this, but I do want to do a correct repair. I want to give my repair every chance that I can to live. So the $35 difference in cost between the two types of resin, I'm willing to absorb that. So this is SMC fiberglass resin. The other type of resin that you can use is an epoxy based resin. That is going to give you that adhesion with the SMC material that has the polyester mold release agent in it. I will tell you that this SMC fiberglass resin is partially polyester based, but it is a mix of material that is approved for SMC. Apparently the polyester they use in here doesn't really have much effect and reaction with the SMC mold release agent. So this is what I'm going to go with, and the other reason that I chose this is due to the matting that I'm going to use. Now inside of this package is the fiberglass matting, and the chemical that binds these fibers together is a styrene, and there is some things you need to know about fiberglass matting. So if the regular fiberglass resin with polyester base adheres well to the matting, the issue that I want to share with you is that if you do use true epoxy resin for your fiberglass repair, that epoxy resin will not release the fibers in matting. And what you're going to end up with, it will work, but what you'll end up with is a repair that needs to use an awful lot of that epoxy resin. And if you do that, your repair is going to have more resin than matting, and it's going to be a very brittle and heavy repair. So the reason that I'm going with this SMC fiberglass resin instead of the epoxy is that this does have a little bit of polyester in it, and it also has that styrene release. So now I will be able to use the fiberglass matting properly and have it release, the styrene release, and that will form one adhesive product where the matting and the resin is melting together. So that's why I chose to go with this SMC fiberglass resin that happens to have polyester in it. It's not a true full epoxy because I did want to use the matting. So when you're doing your fiberglass repairs, if you do buy the true epoxy resin for SMC material, you can buy what's called a biaxial cloth matting. And what that does is it sews that matting material into your cloth material. So the cloth is actually a woven fabric, and the matting is fibrous material that's bound together by that styrene. So when you have biaxial, it is actually, that matting is actually stitched into the cloth. So that will work if you're going to use true epoxy. So really the reason that I chose to go with the SMC fiberglass resin that allows me to use the matting is because in order to do my repair properly, I need to build both strength and I also need to build height, because the repairs that I'm going to do involve building up this surface layer here to match my fender, so I need to get some height, and over in this area I actually need to restructure and rebuild this corner, so I really need strength out here so that that repair does not crack. So with the cloth, you have this woven type material, and it can come in all different weights and weaves, but this is what I'm going to use, and it's thin. It's a really thin material, so it does not build the height that you need quickly. However, this is very strong. The matting, not as strong as the cloth, but it will build the height that I need. So to make a correct repair that is both building and strong, I'm going to use a layer of matting followed by a layer of cloth, another layer of matting, and another layer of cloth, which essentially that is what that biaxial fiberglass matting / cloth does, because it has the cloth together with the matting stitched in. So using the appropriate resin that will actually melt the styrene in here, for my SMC repairs, I will alternate matting and cloth, with the last layer possibly being the matting, because from what I'm reading, the matting will not print through your primer, whereas sometimes the cloth, you'll actually see that pattern. However, either way it ends up, I'm going to use the fiberglass filler as a last coat to smooth everything up. So I'll build it up and structurally repair this and build this out until I've got it like super close to where it needs to be. I'll grind down the highs, and then I'll put that fiberglass filler on there, the Bondo glass, to finish the repair. And then I'm going to bury all of this in several coats of a real thick industrial epoxy primer that I've been using. So thanks for tuning in to Heavy Pedal Garage. I hope this helps you understand what I've learned in the last 2 weeks, which is the difference between SMC fiberglass and traditional fiberglass, the materials that you need to use to make that repair. And also understanding the difference between cloth and mat, and when you would use cloth for structure and support and strength, and matting for building a surface. And lastly, that matting will not melt into your repair if you use true epoxy resin because of the styrene in that matting. Now, I've said United States a couple times. That matting sold in the United States has the styrene, but apparently you can buy matting in Europe that does not have the styrene, so it will work with the epoxy. So the bottom line is, research your materials, look up your repairs, go to the Corvette people, their forums and YouTube videos. The Corvette guys know this stuff really well, and also boat builders. And thanks to Pontiac Firebird Fanatics on Facebook. Go check that page out. The guy's doing some really cool repairs with fiberglass. He's laid out how you repair the fins on the hood using popsicle sticks, and it's just genius. I really liked seeing what he's doing, and he's helped me out a good bit with some advice. You're going to want to stay tuned, especially if you're interested in these fiberglass repairs, because the next few videos that I do is actually going to be a series on repairing this hood and bringing this hood up to a point where we're actually going to make it black with primer. And then really long term, if you guys follow along and subscribe, you'll get to see this Firebird completed and out on the road, and hopefully making me and my family pretty happy as we're cruising down the highway. So check it out. Thanks for stopping by Heavy Pedal Garage, and you know what? Catch me next time.